guys, Sifu's got Tarbell here, Wuxia martial arts. Good morning. So we are going to get started in part 2 of our high-level punching defense methodology. We started part 1 last week, where we talked about when we step in to do a punch like this, right, and we end up cross, like closed door, right? So closed door always means that your arms are crossed with your opponent like this, yeah? Open door means that, it's same side this way, so part of our body is open and part of their body is open. Closed always means that the door is closed, okay? So we're taking a look at some options from punching high level, right? So if my opponent is maybe a little bit taller than me and I'm stepping in to punch, right, and then we end up crossed, what are some different pressures that we can deal with, and how do we neutralize those pressures so that we can keep punching forward, right? So last week what we did was we started from good character 2, right, and we were punching off the backhand. So I'm going to have my right hand back, my left hand forward, and as I stepped in, I'll back up just a little bit here, all right? So I use the chin bow to arrow step in. As I stepped in, and I punch like this, right? We do this a few times just to warm up. So punch and step, and back. And now the left hand is back. I punch and step, and then I'm back. Right, so right hand is back, I punch, step, and back. And this is just a good exercise to warm up the body. So left hand is back, I punch, and then I step. So you notice always that the punch leads and then the body follows, right? So it's never that I step and then punch. Right? The punch should always be leading and then the body follows afterwards. Right? So that's a good way to train. So backhand is punching for the beginners. Like that. I would say no matter what your level is, right? No matter what your level is, it's always good to start out where you're punching off of the backhand a little bit. I think that's always a good way because your trajectory is longer. So when I go here, it gives me a little bit more length, right, to the punch, which means I can get a little bit more power into the punch as well. Advanced students, or really any level, you could try punching off of the front like that, right? So this way, but it won't feel as powerful because it takes time to learn, and a lot of wall bag training to learn how to get power from the short range, right? When you're close, like that. It takes time to be loose and then know how to generate that power. So I always recommend that no matter what level, if you're talking about really punching, like in sparring or self-defense, and you're going to go forward, I mean, you're going to be chain punching anyway, right? It's very rare that you would end up boom, 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 and you're here and then you like land this hit. It's not an Ip Man movie, you know? But those opportunities do present themselves sometimes, but they're not as common as you punching off of the back. So drill number 1, just to warm up, should be that you're punching off of the back and that you're stepping with the chin bow and going in. And then switching sides every time is drill number 1. Okay. And from the side, you can see here, right, the punch leads, and then my body follows, right? And then the punch leads, and body follows. Here. And also, when I'm doing my stepping, like the chin bow, the arrow stepping, a common mistake people make is that they want to circle, and the circle is like gigantic, right? Yeah, so they circle and then they come in, or the step is like really quite large, they go like this. But remember, it's Wing Tsun, the guy is crowding your space, he's stepping in, so I want my step to be smaller. So here, just a little bit, like that, from the side. You see, it's very small, like that, because he's already trying to invade your space. So in Wing Tsun, we never go chasing people down, right? So, it's not like in Sanshao or something where I'm going to advance and try to chase this guy a little bit or cut like an angle on this guy and then go forward. It's not like that. Wing Tsun is purely for self-defense. So, the idea is that the guy steps in, right? And then I just have to go forward like that, because he's already meeting me halfway. So keep that in your mind. The other thing is that everybody wants to make this kind of big circle with the stepping, right? So they want to go big circle like that. From here, they want to go big circle and then step in. But that's actually wrong, right? Chin bow means arrow step. So what that means is that when you shoot an arrow, the arrow wouldn't make a big circle into a curve or like, big J or something like that. It would go straight. like that. So we go very straight. So the circle that happens is merely to cover the groin for a second, support the back knee for a second. That is all. Right? So when I go here, once I've done those two things, then I step straight. So keep that in mind. Shinbo means an arrow step. So when you step, it should be as straight as an arrow. It shouldn't have this like kind of big circle thing going on. Okay. So let's get back for a quick review. So last week we talked about when we stepped in, right, and we punched off the backhand, that if this guy like met me cross arm and he pushed my arm up, like maybe he's a karate guy or a taekwondo guy or a kung fu guy or something, or maybe the guy just doesn't know what he's doing at all and he pushes your arm up out of the way. So when I went forward and he pushed my arm up out of the way, the other one comes up and replaces. Now I don't leave these here because you can be trapped down, right? So I punch, I get pushed up like that, I let it go, and I punch and bring this one back to the chamber. This was number one, right? So you can look at last week's video for a more detailed and intricate description on how to do this. So we go one, gets pushed up, and I punch. Now, what I'm not trying to do is push his arm out to the side. This just goes straight, and this comes back right away. So it replaces. When I punch a little bit higher because remember, my opponent is taller than me, right? So I'm punching up. That's what we call high-level defense. Right? If the guy was the same height as me, I'm probably not going to, if he lifts up a little bit, yeah, I might be able to sneak it in. I could probably still punch on top, right? So if he's taller than me and I go forward like this, and then he pushes my arm way up, everything is exposed. So I need to replace quickly. When I do that, right, this one pulls back and this one takes over, punching like to his forehead, all right? So option one was I stepped in and punch, he pushes up, so the pressure is up. I punch and replace. From the side, right, I stepped in, he pushes my arm up. This one, the backhand, goes forward, nice and high. And again. So punching off of the back, punch, step in, and now he pushes this up, punch under, and I replace. That was option one. Now option two was that I step in and I punch, right? But this time maybe his arm is a little bit lower or my structure is stronger than his, right? And sometimes when you punch in and you have a lot of forward pressure, especially when you're stepping, putting your whole body into the punch, sometimes the person's structure like kind of caves in or breaks down a little bit. Then I can just like use the low elbow and punch. So from here, as I go forward, I meet it, but there's really not a lot of structure there, right? It starts to like kind of go down, or maybe he's trying to bring his arm down the head or reach or do something. So I stick and I punch a little bit lower on this one because I want to trap his arm, right? Using my low elbow structure here, okay? So I go forward, meet, and then and you can see from here that this becomes that short range power. So as I punched in, right, I met it, and maybe he starts to slide or something, so I lower the elbow, and I punch it just like this, and not too low. All right, and again, here I go forward, and then it starts to slide, or his structure is just terrible, and I go like that. So that punches right over his arm. So those are two options. Option one being I go in and he pushes my arm up high, and I replace. Option two is that I punch in, right? But then he starts to like slide down or the structure breaks. And I just go in here and I use that arm to seal, to trap, right? Which is a very high level, in my opinion, here at Wuxia martial arts with the style of Wing Tsun that I like to teach. Every teacher has different preferences on things they enjoy, things they like. Those who know me quite well know that I really enjoy adding China and Shuai Jiao into my Wing Tsun. But also that I'm not a big fan of doing too many of the hand shapes, that I would rather just try to go in and punch and feel pressure and do all of those different things and learn how to punch and do those things reflexively. So you never have to like open your hand and try to do stuff. Not that it's wrong, right? But if I can just blitz somebody with punching, and then if they push something, it just goes, and I can keep going forward. For me, I think that's a high level of punch. And we call that gate trapping as well, is if I can sink, right? If I can trap their arms while I'm punching, and they're kind of stuck while I'm punching with the low elbow, those are always the best, okay? If you can trap and punch at the same time, instead of trying to grab them. It's not a bad skill to have, but grabbing and like trying to do all this is, in my opinion, a bit amateurish, right? So it's like early levels of Wing Chun. It's not wrong, right? But as you progress in punching and doing these things, your punches should also be able to trap his arms down while you're hitting, okay? In some cases, not all. All right, so option number 3. I step forward and I go here, right? But now he pushes my arm to the side like that. So we met here, but he pushes my arm to the side. So when he does this, right, because it's a high level punch, I don't really want to make Bong Sao because the shoulder comes up, there's a lot of pressure. It's a weak structure. So I can use this motion, right, is like Bong Sao, but not Bong Sao. So I go forward, right? And then as he pushes, I let it go a little bit like this. And then this one comes up. So like that, I let it go, and then this one comes up. All right, so let's look at that again. I punch forward, he gives me pressure to the side, right? And instead of being stiff and letting him walk my arm this way where he could seal me, right? I let this hinge at the elbow. So as he pushes, right, like that, I let it go, and then this one sneaks under, and then right away, look at this, I bring this back to the chamber. This is very important. A lot of people do this thing and they leave it out, but of course, you can be trapped, right? So when I go forward and I get pressure to the side, I let it go there, but then as soon as this punch comes through, I just chamber this one back down, right? So he can't stick to me anymore. Right? So again, this is option 3. Right? I call it like the Bong Sao option, even though it's not Bong Sao, but it helps to understand the feeling. This is a very similar feeling at mid-level where we would do something like this, but now at high level, I can't do this. So I go and I bring it back and I try not to hold the structure. So when I go forward, I don't hold the structure and then try to punch under, right? Because it's a weak structure. You can feel, even if you make a Bong Sao, the higher up you go, the more tension on your shoulder, it doesn't feel good, right? So I go here and then I get pushed to the side and I let that come up right away. We'll do this from the side. So I go forward, I get pushed to the side, so it goes this way, comes up. And you can see that I'll go this way. When I go here, and I punch and it goes to the side, as this comes up, this comes back down. Like that. And you can practice this also, like even without the stepping, you could just punch, right, a little bit higher, let it go, and bring it back to the chamber. Punch, let it go, punch under, bring it back to the chamber. Okay, so as the second punch, the one that comes from underneath, goes forward, at its full extension, I should already be back to the chamber. And the fist should be facing forward like this, right? So a lot of people will do something like this where they go forward, right? And then they come back and, you know, it's like the fist is pointing up towards their chin, or it's like pointing that way, right? Or something like that. So every time, I always want to have this here, because if he rushes me or I'm going to start to chain punch, I want to make sure that this punch is chambered and ready to go. So I don't have to move much. If he comes close, then it's already in the position to hit it, right? I don't have to like adjust it or do anything like that. So option number 3 is that I go forward, right? It goes here, punch under, right? And then this fist is chambered and ready to go forward, just like that. One more time. So I go forward here, he gives me pressure. I go through kind of this high Bong Sao, even though it's not a Bong Sao, right? I punch under and it just comes to here. Okay, so one more time. Here, boom, boom, punch. Okay, so that is option number 3. So let's review real quick, right? Option number 1, and you could do this stationary from character 2 if you want, or you could do it stepping in. It's your choice. So from here, right, and I'll just do this stationary for the sake of the instruction video, right? So from here, option 1 is that I punch forward, right? He pushes up, I punch under nice and straight. So all of this is straight, he just pushes it up. He's not pushing to the side or pushing to the side. He just pushes it straight up. So option 1, I punch forward, it goes up, and I punch, right? Option 2 is I punch forward, but his structure is weak. So I give him a little bit here with the low elbow, and I punch a little bit lower because maybe he's sliding low. Option 3 is he's going to push my arm to the side, like with a karate block or something, or even we just meet and he like pushes my arm to the side, says, get it out of here, right? So I punch like that. And then as he pushes it forward from here, the punch sneaks under, this comes back. So let's review again. Ready? Option 1, I punch, gets lifted up. So you have high pressure, punch under straight. Right? And the same thing, this punch is always in the position to go forward again. Option 2, punch forward, his structure kind of collapses, but he's still sticking, right? So I punch with the low elbow. Option 3, I go forward, he pushes my arm to the side at the high level. So I go here and just let the elbow hinge and relax, and then I punch under. Okay, all right, so those are the first 3 options of when you're punching high level defense, closed door, right? When you're back of arm to each other like this, right? And next week we'll take a look at option 4, drawing the bow, and then we'll show you, how you can kind of use some of these options in a freestyle motion, moving for shadow boxing, with stepping and turning and some of those things. But also we'll take a look at how do these 4 pressures integrate into your lot style as well from here. What are some key entries that we can use to get into it? And yeah, so you can practice that solo, and if you have a partner or somebody that can give you like a little bit of pressure, just some triggers, right? Then you can work this as well. These are very important, guys, because the heart of Wing Tsun lies not in its techniques, right? So a lot of people get that confused. They try to collect techniques or something like that, or like fighting techniques. Like when I did karate back in the day, we had 20 front choke defenses and like like all these different waza, all these different like techniques that you had to memorize and stuff like that. And it was cool. I mean, it was fun. But for fighting, whenever I would like spar or had gotten into some matches, competed and stuff, what I found was that I would fall back on like certain things, right? If my partner like tried to do something, oftentimes I would have like a response that had been built into my nervous system. So when I came along to Wing Tsun, and Wing Tsun is a boxing system, right? So the whole idea is that I'm not trying necessarily to, he does A, I do B. It's that I want to do what I want to do, go forward, and then I get some type of pressure, and I want to continue to go forward no matter what. So your body, your nervous system can kind of take over, where you can get out of the driver's seat, and your Wing Tsun will just take over for you. So you don't have to think in the fight or try to see what's going on in the fight. You'll just go forward, right? Pressure your partner, and then when you get some of these pressures, right, he'll knock your arm to the side, or he'll knock your arm up. If you train and drill these enough, then you won't have to like think about it at all. It'll just happen on its own. Like Bruce Lee said, I always refer to this. Bruce Lee said, when we're talking about fighting, he says, it says, I do not hit. It hits all on its own, meaning that you've trained it enough that you have this kind of unconscious competence, right? That like you can just go forward, and your nervous system and your reflexes have the automaticity to just go forward and do what it's supposed to do in a logical way without you having to think like, oh, here comes a jab. What should I do? We just go forward. Something gets in the way, we run around it and keep going forward. So, but that can only happen through drilling over and over and over and over. I remember what Sifu Jeff said, repetition makes the master. So the more reps you can get, and if you can come in, obviously, to Wuxia, and you can train with your partners and get that pressure, that's going to make you a lot better. Training solo is only 25%, especially with Wing Tsun. So it's important that you try to be here. All right, guys, so that is part 2 of your closed door high-level defense. Next week, we'll be taking a look at the 4th option, drawing the bow. Okay, so have a good week. Train hard to be soft.